The fluorescent lights of the corner convenience store buzzed overhead as Marcus Williams counted the crumpled bills in his wallet. $23, enough for gas to get to his third job interview this week, maybe a sandwich if he was lucky. At 24, he'd been grinding for 2 years since community college, taking whatever work he could find while living in his grandmother's basement apartment. His worn work boots squeaked against the linoleum as he approached the counter, where an elderly Korean man smiled warmly despite the late hour. "Just the gas, Mr. Kim," Marcus said, sliding a 20 across the counter. He'd been coming here for months, and Mr. Kim always remembered his name, always asked about his job search with genuine concern that Marcus rarely encountered elsewhere. "You have interview tomorrow, yes?" Mr. Kim asked, his English careful but, "Kinda, you look tired, Marcus, you need to rest." Marcus managed a weary smile. "Yeah, tomorrow's the big one. Regional manager position at the logistics company downtown. Could change everything." He didn't mention that he'd already been rejected twice this month, once before he even got through the door, the interviewer taking one look at him and suddenly discovering the position had been filled. The door chimes jangled as a woman entered, her designer heels clicking against the floor. Marcus glanced over and felt his breath catch. She was stunning, with auburn hair pulled back in a sleek bun and wearing a tailored navy suit that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month. She moved with the confident stride of someone who belonged in boardrooms, not late-night convenience stores in this neighborhood. The woman, Sarah Mitchell, was actually lost. Her GPS had died somewhere between the charity gala and her downtown penthouse, and she'd pulled over to ask for directions. She worked as a senior executive at Mitchell & Associates, the same consulting firm where Marcus had an interview scheduled for tomorrow morning, though neither of them knew this yet. As she approached the counter, her diamond earrings caught the harsh store lighting, and Marcus couldn't help but notice how out of place she seemed in this modest corner store. "Excuse me?" Sarah said to Mr. Kim, her voice carrying the polished accent of private schools and Ivy League education. "I'm trying to get to the financial district. Could you tell me how to get back to the main highway?" Mr. Kim began explaining. Directions, his accent making some words unclear, and Sarah politely leaned closer, trying to understand. Marcus watched this interaction, noting how she didn't show any impatience or condescension. Unlike many people who wandered into this neighborhood, there was something genuine in her attentiveness that surprised him. That's when Marcus noticed the man who had followed Sarah into the store. The stranger kept his hands in his jacket pockets, his eyes darting between Sarah's expensive purse and the cash register. His movements were jittery, desperate, and Marcus had seen enough trouble in his life to recognize it brewing. The man was thin, probably mid-30s, with the hollow look of someone who'd made too many bad choices and was about to make another one. Marcus felt his pulse quicken. He could see the situation developing before anyone else noticed. The man was positioning himself near the door, blocking the exit, while Sarah remained focused on getting directions. Mr. Kim, bless his heart, was still patiently drawing a map on a napkin, completely unaware of the danger. The stranger's hand emerged from his jacket, revealing a small black pistol. "Nobody move," he said, his voice shaking almost as much as his hands. "Empty the register, old man. And lady, that purse looks real nice." Sarah gasped, stumbling backward, her composure cracking for the first time. Mr. Kim's eyes went wide with terror, and his hands trembled as he reached for the cash register. The robber's gun swung wildly between them, and Marcus could see he was either high or desperate enough to be unpredictable, which made him exponentially more dangerous. Time seemed to slow as Marcus processed his options. He could duck behind the snack aisle, call 911, hope the police arrived before anyone got hurt. He could comply, let the man take what he wanted and pray he'd leave peacefully. Or he could act. Sarah's hands shook as she fumbled with her purse strap. "Please," she whispered, "just take whatever you want. Don't hurt anyone." "Shut up," the gunman snapped, swinging the weapon toward her. "Move faster." That's when Marcus saw it, the man's finger tightening on the trigger, his agitation escalating. Beyond reason. Sarah was going to get shot, maybe killed, and all for being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Mr. Kim might be next. Marcus couldn't live with himself if he stood by and watched innocent people get hurt, when he might have been able to prevent it. Marcus had grown up in neighborhoods where you learned to assess danger quickly. His older brother had been killed in a drive-by shooting when Marcus was 16, a senseless tragedy that had shaped his perspective on violence and community. He'd sworn then that he would never let fear prevent him from doing what was right, even when the cost was high. Without conscious thought, Marcus lunged forward just as the gunman's finger pulled the trigger. The bullet, meant for Sarah's chest, tore through Marcus's shoulder instead, spinning him around and sending him crashing into a display of energy drinks. Pain exploded through his body, white-hot and consuming, but he was still conscious, still breathing. Sarah screamed, her polished composure completely shattered. The gunman, startled by Marcus's intervention, panicked and fled, leaving behind only the acrid smell of gunpowder and the chaos of the moment. Mr. Kim was already on the phone with 911, his voice rapid and urgent as he requested both police and paramedics. "Oh my God," Sarah kept repeating, dropping to her knees beside Marcus. Her hands hovered over his bleeding shoulder, unsure how to help but desperate to do something. "Why did you do that? You don't even know me." Marcus gritted his teeth against the pain, looking up at her face, which was now streaked with tears. "Couldn't just watch him hurt you," he managed to say. "Are you okay? Am I okay?" Sarah's voice cracked with disbelief. "You just took a bullet for me. I should be asking if you're okay." The paramedics arrived within minutes, but those minutes felt like hours. Sarah stayed by Marcus's side, holding his uninjured hand and talking to keep him conscious. She told him her name, that she worked downtown, that she had never met anyone who would risk their life for a complete stranger. Marcus, fighting through waves of pain and shock, learned that she was 31, originally from Boston, and that this was the most terrifying night of her life. "The interview," Marcus mumbled as the paramedics loaded him onto a stretcher. "I have an interview tomorrow morning, Mitchell and Associates." Sarah's eyes widened with recognition, but before she could respond, the ambulance doors closed, and Marcus was whisked away to the hospital. The surgery took 4 hours. The bullet had missed major arteries but had done significant damage to Marcus's shoulder and upper arm. He woke up in a hospital bed to find flowers, cards, and a woman he barely recognized sitting in the visitor's chair. Sarah had changed out of her designer suit into jeans and a sweater, her hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. She looked younger, more approachable, but her eyes were red-rimmed with exhaustion and worry. "You stayed," Marcus said, his voice hoarse from the anesthesia. "Of course I stayed," Sarah replied, moving her chair closer to his bed. "How are you feeling?" "Like I got shot," Marcus attempted a weak joke, which earned him a small smile. "But alive, thanks to the doctors here. And you didn't have to stay. I'm sure you have more important things to do." Sarah shook her head. "Nothing more important than this, than you." She paused, seeming to gather her courage. "Marcus, I need to tell you something. When you mentioned Mitchell and Associates last night, I recognized the name because I work there. I'm the senior director of operations." Marcus stared at her, processing this information. You're my interviewer?" "I was supposed to be, yes. The interview was scheduled with me for this morning." Sarah's voice was soft, almost apologetic. "But more than that, I've been looking at your application for weeks. Your grades, your recommendations, your community service record. On paper, you were exactly what we needed, but I'll be honest, I had doubts." "About my qualifications?" Marcus asked, though he suspected he knew the real reason. Sarah met his eyes directly. "About whether you'd fit into our corporate culture, whether our clients would accept you, whether you had the kind of polished presence we typically look for." She took a deep breath. "I was wrong. Completely, shamefully wrong." The honesty in her admission surprised Marcus. In his experience, people in positions of power rarely acknowledge their prejudices so directly. "What changed your mind?" he asked. "Last night you showed more character in 30 seconds than most people display in a lifetime," Sarah said. "You risked everything to protect strangers. That kind of integrity, that kind of courage, that's what real leadership looks like. Not the surface-level polish I thought we needed." Over the next few days, as Marcus recovered in the hospital, Sarah visited daily. What started as guilt and gratitude gradually evolved into something deeper. She brought him books, his favorite coffee from a shop near her office, and most importantly, her undivided attention. They talked for hours about everything from their childhood dreams to their fears about the future. Marcus learned that Sarah had grown up in privilege, but had always felt disconnected from meaningful work. She'd climbed the corporate ladder efficiently, but felt empty, like she was just going through the motions of success without understanding its purpose. The night at the convenience store had shaken something loose in her, made her question what really mattered. Sarah discovered that Marcus was nothing like the assumptions she'd made about young black men from his neighborhood. He was articulate, thoughtful, and had a degree in business management with a focus on community development. He volunteered at a local youth center, teaching kids financial literacy and job interview skills. He'd been supporting his grandmother while working multiple part-time jobs, never complaining about the challenges, just quietly persevering. "I've been thinking," Sarah said during one of her visits, "about the position you interviewed for. Technically, you never got to interview." "I don't think I'm in any condition for interviews right now," Marcus replied, gesturing to his bandaged shoulder. "No. But when you're recovered, I'd like to offer you the job directly, not because of what happened at the store, but because you're qualified. You're exactly what our company needs, and I should have seen that from the beginning." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. "I don't want charity, Sarah. If you're offering this out of guilt or gratitude, I'm offering it because you're the best candidate we've seen," Sarah interrupted firmly. "Your academic record speaks for itself. Your references are glowing. And after spending time with you this week, I can see the kind of leader you are, the kind of person who makes everyone around them better." The job offer was just the beginning. As Marcus recovered and eventually started work at Mitchell & Associates, he and Sarah discovered they complemented each other perfectly. He brought fresh perspectives and community connections that helped the firm expand into underserved markets. She provided mentorship and opened doors that had previously been closed to someone from his background. Their professional relationship gradually blossomed into something personal. Sarah began spending time in Marcus's neighborhood, meeting his grandmother, volunteering at the youth center where he taught. Marcus found himself comfortable in Sarah's world too, holding his own in business dinners and client meetings, his natural charisma and intelligence shining once people got past their initial assumptions. The transformation in both their lives was remarkable. Marcus went from struggling to find work to becoming one of the firm's most successful account managers within 6 months. Sarah discovered a passion for community outreach and corporate social responsibility that had been dormant her entire career. Together, they developed programs that connected their firm with local nonprofits and small businesses, creating opportunities that benefited everyone involved. But the real change was deeper than professional success. Marcus had spent years feeling invisible, overlooked, judged before he even had a chance to speak. Now he found himself valued, respected, his opinion sought after by colleagues and clients alike. Sarah had spent years feeling isolated by her privilege, unsure how to use her advantages to make a meaningful difference. Through Marcus, she discovered ways to create genuine change while learning to see the world through perspectives vastly different from her own. Their romantic relationship developed slowly, built on a foundation of mutual respect and shared values. Marcus's grandmother, Dorothy, initially worried that Sarah might be slumming or experimenting with dating outside her social class. But after several Sunday dinners and long conversations about Sarah's genuine commitment to the community work they were doing together, Dorothy gave her blessing. "That girl sees you for who you really are," Dorothy told Marcus one evening. "And more importantly, she's letting you see who she really is too. That's rare, baby. Don't let fear mess it up." Sarah's family was more challenging. Her parents, both successful lawyers, struggled to understand her relationship with Marcus and her increasing involvement in community activism. At a tense family dinner, her father made pointed comments about phases and social experiments, while her mother worried aloud about Sarah's career prospects if she became too associated with those causes. "Marcus isn't a phase, Dad," Sarah said calmly but firmly. "He's the most remarkable man I've ever met. He's made me a better person and shown me what it means to live with purpose. If you can't see that, then you're missing out on knowing an extraordinary person." The confrontation was difficult, but it marked a turning point in Sarah's relationship with her family and her own identity. She stopped seeking their approval for her choices and began living according to her own values. A year after the shooting, Marcus and Sarah were featured in the local newspaper for their innovative community partnership programs. The article highlighted how their firm had become a model for other companies looking to make genuine community connections. But more than the professional recognition, what mattered to both of them was the impact they were having on young people in Marcus's old neighborhood. "A year ago, I was just trying to survive," Marcus told the reporter. "Getting by, hoping someone would give me a chance. I never imagined that the worst night of my life would lead to the best year of my life." Sarah, sitting beside him in the youth center where they now held weekly financial literacy workshops, added, "Sometimes the most important moments are the ones that force us to see past our assumptions and prejudices. Marcus didn't just save my life that night, he saved me from a life that was successful, but empty." The shooting had left Marcus with limited mobility in his shoulder and occasional pain, but he never regretted his decision. The physical reminder of that night served as a daily affirmation of his values and the life he'd chosen to build. He'd learned that heroism wasn't about being fearless, it was about acting despite fear when something greater than yourself was at stake. Sarah kept a photo on her desk from that night in the hospital, Marcus looking pale but determined, her hair messy from hours of worry. It reminded her daily that the most important connections in life often come from the most unexpected circumstances, and that real love grows not from similarity, but from seeing and valuing differences. Their relationship wasn't without challenges. They came from different worlds, different experiences, different struggles, but they faced these differences with curiosity rather than judgment, using their contrast to broaden each other's perspectives rather than create divisions. Marcus's friends initially wondered if Sarah was genuine or just going through a phase of social consciousness. Sarah's colleagues questioned whether she was throwing away her career advancement for idealistic pursuits. But over time, the sincerity of their partnership and the measurable impact of their work spoke louder than any skepticism. On the first anniversary of the shooting, Marcus and Sarah returned to Mr. Kim's store. The elderly shopkeeper, who had become something of a local celebrity after the incident, greeted them with tears in his eyes. "You see," Mr. Kim said, gesturing between them, "good things come from good hearts. You save her life, she save your life too, yes?" Sarah squeezed Marcus's uninjured hand. "He's right, you know. You saved me in more ways than one." Marcus looked around the familiar store where his life had changed so dramatically. "We saved each other." That evening, at a quiet dinner in Sarah's apartment, Marcus pulled out a small velvet box. The ring inside wasn't expensive by Sarah's family standards, but it had been chosen with careful thought and months of saving. "I know we come from different worlds," Marcus said, his voice steady despite his racing heart. "I know people will have opinions about us, about whether this makes sense, but I also know that I want to spend the rest of my life learning from you, growing with you, building something beautiful together." Sarah's tears were immediate and joyful. "Yes," she whispered, before he'd even finished asking the question. "Yes, absolutely yes." As they held each other in her apartment overlooking the city, both of them reflected on the strange journey that had brought them together. A moment of violence had revealed the possibility of love. A split-second decision had created a lifetime of connection. Two people from different worlds had found common ground in shared values and mutual respect. Marcus thought about his brother, who had died so young, so senselessly. He wondered if his brother would be proud of the man he'd become, the life he was building. He thought about all the young men in his old neighborhood who needed to see examples of success that looked like them, in boardrooms and community centers, alike. Sarah thought about the woman she'd been a year ago, successful but isolated, accomplished but unfulfilled. She thought about the assumptions she'd carried, the privileges she'd taken for granted, and the ways Marcus had challenged her to use her advantages to lift others, rather than just herself. Their love story wasn't just about two people finding each other. It was about breaking down barriers, challenging assumptions, and proving that genuine connection transcends social boundaries. It was about the courage to act when action is needed, and the wisdom to recognize that heroism comes in many forms. Marcus Williams had taken a bullet for a stranger and found love. But more than that, he'd found his purpose, his voice, and his place in a world that had too often overlooked him. Sarah Mitchell had been saved by a stranger and found her heart. But more than that, she'd found her conscience, her calling, and her commitment to using her privilege for positive change. Together, they were proof that the most powerful transformations often begin with a single moment of courage, and that love, when it's real, doesn't just change two lives. It changes the world around them, one person, one opportunity, one act of kindness at a time.